Hi, welcome to the Pearls and Polish podcast, episode 55. I'm your host, Rachael, coming to you from just outside Sacramento, California. This is my little corner of the internet where I talk about knitting, making, and all the other things I'm up to, along with what I am reading and watching. If this is your first episode joining us, welcome. I'm so excited to spend some time with you. And if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. It's been a minute since our last episode. It's been like, 2-3 weeks? I normally start with finished objects, and I have 2 to share, but I wanted to start with kind of some life updates because it has been a couple of weeks. So on top of being here and sharing stuff with you guys, I'm also a mom, and so I have kids, and we had a unplanned fire evacuation at the kids' school on a Monday, and then later on that week there was a threat made to their school, so they had to lock down, and that was an emotional roller coaster for me. My kids did great. They remembered like all the training that they've been doing, and the staff handled it beautifully, the police handled it beautifully, so everyone was safe, and it was a false alarm, but it was just a very emotional day. So that's been happening. On top of all that, one of my kids ended up being not well, so we had to spend some time at urgent care trying to get stuff sorted out. And I started substitute teaching again. So it has been a lot of things all at once, which kind of leads into the I'm not making a ton or I'm not knitting a ton because my schedule is so packed, and then feeling bad that I'm not doing enough. I know we've had this conversation before, and about kind of how do you define success as a maker? Is it how much time you're spending on something? Is it how many things you're producing? And also, comparison is the thief of joy. There are some makers that I follow that are beautiful makers, and they design and they do all these things, but that's like their full-time job. And so I see their stuff and then I feel bad of well, why can't I keep up? But I have 2 part-time jobs, and I have a family, and my kids are kind of small. So I can't compare my making journey to, use the hip words, with someone else's because their life is different. So trying to work through that, but I do have some stuff to share. So the first thing I wanted to share that is done is my Musselburgh hat. So this is the Emerald Isle Musselburgh, and this lighting is not great for showing things because it blows out. But think emerald green, super bright emerald green. This hat pattern kind of took the internet world by storm a couple years ago, in that it is the most versatile hat pattern I have ever seen. It's by Isolde Teague, and it is sized babies to super large adult. And then it's also available in patterns from fingering all the way to worsted weight. So you could pick any yarn and any size, and it will help you figure out how many stitches to cast on, how big you have to increase, how long you make it. So it's a really great versatile pattern. So I've done 4 or 5 of these, and I got this yarn as a gift from the Fiber Friends sock swap, and I wanted to do a hat with this yarn rather than socks because this is just a gorgeous yarn and I love the color. So this is done. Super excited to wear this as it gets a little colder here in Sacramento. The other finished object I have are my DK socks. So I showed this yarn last episode. And I can't remember if we talked about, hold on, I've got my notes. Let me flip back and see what exactly we talked about. Okay, so last episode we talked about the Woolberry Marled along. So the idea is Woolberry was doing a knit along or make along, and you had to marl colors. So using 2 different colors, one of them had to be a color by Woolberry, and then you hold them together and you make a project. So I had originally chosen this cream color, and I didn't bring the scraps with me, but I brought this cream color and then some other colors that Woolberry had done for their road trip collection. And I was gonna make these socks and it was gonna be great. Well, I started knitting with them and realized they all just blended together. So they just kind of disappeared and I didn't like it. So I scrapped it. So the cream color is Sourdough by Craft Me Not. And that was in her winter box that was from a couple years ago. And I grabbed a different Woolberry color. At the same time I was starting these socks, I got my autumn book club, or I think it's called Lit Club box. And one of the colors was this gorgeous, like orangey brown color. And I really loved it. And I decided these needed to go together. And I think this was the right choice in that there's a lot of contrast, but the brown has a lot of variation. It's got some darker spots, it's got some lighter spots. So that was still gonna pop through even being held double with the cream. So I think this was the better life choice. They look super snug and cozy. Of course, this is my go-to DK weight sock pattern. It's the High Desert Sock by Lindesy Fowler. I've done at least 20 pairs of these socks, if not more. This is my favorite way to knit a DK sock, which is of course thicker than fingering weight. And her pattern is written so that you hold a main color double, and then you also have 2 minis to kind of make the cuff. There's some stripes here, the heel, and then the toe. I modified the pattern because I didn't want stripes, so I just held my yarn, 2 yarns together. I didn't hold a double. I held 2 yarns together, and then I just knit through the pattern and just ignored the instructions for the stripes. So really love how those came out. Can't wait to wear those as it's getting a little cooler. So I have 3 works in progress that I have to share. And this kind of goes back to that whole, am I producing enough or working enough on the things that we talked about earlier? So they're just kind of all in the middle of being done. But the first thing I want to show you are my fingerless mittens. So I don't remember the pattern name or who made it, but it's going to be down below along with links to everyone else that I talk about in today's episode. I don't think I mentioned that. But in the description below, there'll be links to shops, dyers, designers, everyone I mentioned today, along with links to my Instagram and Ravelry pages if you want to check those out. But anyways, this is yarn that my mom brought me back from, I want to say Ireland, but it is this purpley blue, I would say, but it's got red and some blue tweed in it. So this yarn, the way that it's spun so that it's kind of fluffy, so it holds air in. So this is great for mittens, for hats, for scarves, anything that you're going to use in really cold weather because it traps in all the warm air. This is very different than like yarn I use for socks. That's very smooth and kind of spun really tight together. And that's going to be for durability. So you want something like this for warmth and something like my sock yarn for durability and strength. But anyways, I wanted some fingerless mittens because I don't like being cold, but it doesn't snow where I live, and I don't even like the snow to begin with. But I think these look awesome. They're very warm. It's a little scratchy, but not too bad. They fit beautifully. So this is the first one. And I did want to do cables because like this is the kind of yarn you do cables with. The way that it's spun, it's also a non-superwash. So if I were to get this in hot water and agitate it, it would definitely felt. But at the same time, for mittens, that won't necessarily be a bad thing because it's going to trap in more heat. But the way that the fibers are spun together, they just like to interlock. So cables is a great option for a yarn like this. So the first mitten is done. I have to start the second mitten, and then I wanted to make a set for my mom as well, since she's the one who brought me this from Ireland. So the other project I have are my apple picking socks. So this is yarn by Murray and Company, Wool Goods, and I am not familiar with this yarn dyer. I got this sock set from Gary Boston of Gary Knits, Gary Writes. His, what's it called? D-Stash for Good. Sorry, I wanted to say Ride for Good. His D-Stash for Good. This is one of the items that was up for auction, so that I won it. And it's called Apple Picking. And this is the Tweety sock set. So this is, oh, that's messy. Let's give you the side. There we go. Tweety sock set. It is 85% superwash merino, 15% Donegal neps. So that's the tweed. 438 yards, 100 grams, and it has a green mini, and that is 87 yards, 20 grams. So this is part of Denise of Earth Tones Girl, her falling leaves sock knit along, something like that. But these socks will qualify because it's fall themed. Apple picking is in the fall, so it works for me. The other ones that I did that I showed you earlier, I'm gonna enter those in as well. But I really like this yarn. It's got that fun, like dark red, but contrasting with that almost lime yellow. And these are coming out beautifully. Again, this light is not super great. I remember now why I stopped recording over here. But these have been really fun to work with. I really like how it's kind of self-striping. The way the yarn is dyed, it's, you know, you have the hank and half of it is dyed red, and then they do kind of patterns on the other half, so you get this really fun semi self-striping yarn. So that is coming along really nice. My original goal was to knit 10 rows on this every day and just kind of stretch it out and then work on other things. Well, like I said, life has been really busy, and so I haven't even had time to do that. So I've had to kind of reevaluate what I'm prioritizing. So this has not been getting the 10 rows a day, but I did get through a good chunk of it yesterday. So I have about 20-ish more rows to go, and then I'll do the toe. And I should probably weigh the mini. This is the 20 gram mini, and see how much I have left. Because I want my socks to match, but most of the time I don't have enough for cuff, heels, and toes. I kind of have to pick two. So I picked, of course, cuff and heel, which is what I typically do, but I kind of want to do the toe as well. So I'll weigh this to see how much I have left, and then kind of do some math and figure out if I have enough to do the toe. And if not, then, you know, too bad, and I'll just use the main color for the rest of that. But that is the second work in progress. And then I have my third work in progress. Do you guys remember that sweater I showed you last episode that I started 2 years ago, and I was gonna try it on and see how it fit and then finish it up? Yeah, about that. I took it apart. I tried it on and everything just felt off. And for lots of reasons. One, I was using the wrong needles for this project and this yarn. I was trying out some wood needles, and I realized I don't like wood needles. I like the steel needles. That just works better for me. They're long and sharp, and that's what I like when I knit. So already strike one. Strike two was that I had been learning how to do continental knitting at the time. So I was doing kind of my old style of knitting, which means my tension was different than it is now. So that's strike two. If I had continued knitting it, but with my new style, it would just look wonky. It wouldn't look like polished. So strike two. Strike three was the size was just not right. I think I picked a smaller size and hoped that I could aggressively block it. And I'm just not interested in doing that. Plus strikes 1 and 2, so strike 3 was an easy, like, well, it's time to take it apart. So I took the whole thing apart and I started over. Oh, strike 4 was that, and this was like neither here nor there, this wasn't a breaking point for me, but the pattern has some little mini cables throughout the body in the solid color. So you have these little like X patterns, and I chose not to do those when I knit it the first time. And so when I restarted my sweater, I said, no, I'm gonna do the whole thing the way it's meant to be done. I'm gonna put the little X's back in. So there's that. So okay, so here's the front. So I have restarted my sweater. So I took all the work apart that I had done with the first one, and I ripped it all apart and wound it all back up, and I cast on the next size up because I think that's gonna be a better fit in my steel needles, knitting continental the way I normally do now. And I think this is a better life choice. So there's a little bit of color work here on top, and then you have this lace section. And as I was doing the lace section, I was like contemplating my life choices as far as, did I pick a color for this part that was too busy? The original pattern does have some kind of busyness in the yarn itself, but I was afraid, did I go too far? And I decided I didn't care. I like it. I like this color. I picked these colors for a reason, and I'm gonna stick with it. I also don't want to go look for a new color. And then there's a little bit of color work here at the end, and then you start the body. So I have started the little X's, and we're working through them. It takes a lot longer than if you were to just knit stockinette. You're also knitting in the round, and these are a lot more stitches than on a sock. And I kind of forgot what it was like to knit a sweater in fingering weight yarn. This is fingering weight yarn, so what you would use for socks. It takes a lot longer than when you knit in DK or worsted. So like the other night I was getting kind of frustrated, like, why is this taking so long to knit 8 rows? Or 16 rows, because the cable like repeat chart is 16 rows long. It's like, why is this taking so long? I should be like halfway through the body by now. And realized it's because it's more stitches and thinner yarn. So things I have learned since restarting this sweater. 1, I don't really care for fingering weight sweaters. They're beautiful. They're really light, so you can wear them in those transition months from like kind of summer to fall and into winter. They just take forever. So there's that. I do have one sweater lot in my stash that is also fingering weight, and it's also for a cable sweater, but those cables are bigger and it's only the front. So for a second I thought like I need to not do that sweater at all because I'm not enjoying this. And I thought, no, that's a whole nother project for another day. That is not today's problem. So here we are. So in this like stage of life that I'm in, where things are just a little busier than what I am used to. I think I'm still in like summer making mode, where I got so much done over the summer. I'm having to make some choices. I want to finish this sweater by the end of the year. It is taking me 2 years to get to this point. I want to finish this by the end of the year because I want to wear it. So this is kind of my long-term project. I'm going to be working on this in the evenings because that's what I can handle. It's not a super portable project, so, you know, I can't really take it to meetings or to, you know, taekwondo practices because I have to have a chart out and I have all these things that have to be with this sweater. So that has to stay at home. So that's an evening project. This project with the mittens is a little more portable. There are charts with it, but it's not as bad. Also, if you just kind of focus and sit down and get it done, it does not take that much time. So this might also be a home project, just because of the charts, and I don't like pulling papers out when I'm knitting out and about. But I can kind of do this in the mornings, and just wherever I end up is fine because I can mark the chart and pick up wherever. And then the apple picking socks, I think that's going to be my to-go project. So when I have meetings, when I am watching my kids' classes, because I don't have to think super hard with that. So we're wrapping up September. We're moving into October. We have 2 more months left, and then it's Advent knitting. So the plan for the next 2 months is that sweater, finish off these projects, and then kind of figure out what other little projects I can work on until Advent season starts, and then we hit the ground running with Advents. On top of all that, I'm still wanting to record a video about my knitting planner and how I make this work for my life, and what do I use, and what has been working, what has not. And I still need to record this tutorial that I talked about in the last episode. So I have plenty of things to do and not a ton of time to do it, but it's going to be fine. There is no rush. There is no race. That's where we're at. Reading and watching. So I finished the books East and West by Edith Pattou. Really enjoyed those. We also have a children's book that she wrote, and I didn't put the two together, but now it kind of makes sense. The tone is very similar. But both East and West is a 2-part story, but it's a variation of the Beauty and the Beast story, where the Beauty is a girl who lives in Norway-ish area, somewhere kind of in that Nordic part of the world. The Beast is a French prince who was turned into a polar bear as part of a curse because a troll queen kidnapped him. And how the main character, kind of breaks the curse, and then the second book is a second curse and how they work through that. So really great story, very clean. It was one I felt safe or comfortable playing in front of my kids. I didn't, just because they ask a lot of questions and I didn't want to fill in all the backstory, but it's pretty clean. So I definitely enjoyed that one. I started the book Kim by Kipling. He also wrote The Jungle Book as part of our Classics Lit book club, and I didn't really like it. I couldn't really get into it. So I decided not to finish that one. So there's that. If that's one of your favorite books, I love that you love that, but it wasn't for me. And then I started another book, and it is called Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. It's part of her Shadowhunter universe. So I've read it before, but it's been a really long time, so not a whole lot has happened just yet. Watching, I watched the whole series of Discovery of Witches on Netflix. I have seen that series before. I never read the books, so I don't know how it compares to the books. It was nice kind of background stuff, so not something I had to think too hard about, so that was great. And then I did start Agatha All Along on Disney+. We love the Marvel kind of spin-off shows, and I really liked Agatha's character in WandaVision, so that has been really great. So I'm excited to see kind of how that story plays out. So I watched episode 3 this morning, even though it's been out for a couple days. So yeah, really enjoying that. Well, that is all I have to share with you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to try and be a little more consistent in when I record, but make sure you like and make sure you subscribe so you get a notification whenever an episode comes out. I'm not sure how consistent or if they're going to be on the same days, but I'm going to try to get an episode out once a week still. So thanks for joining me. I had so much time spending with you talking about the knitting things. Have a great week, and I will see you next time.